Hello and welcome to another episode of Veritas Live. I'm your host, Johnny King, and today is a special episode. Today marks episode 1 of season 2. Insert pomp, insert circumstance. It's a big episode today centered around all things cloud. As always, I am broadcasting from Orlando, Florida, home of Mickey Mouse and Florida Man. Two of the most popular characters in all of the world. But enough about me, enough about Orlando, Florida. I want to know about you. Where are you dialing in from? Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? These are the questions we need to know. Let us know in the comments below. I'd love to give you a shout out. As always, use the hashtag VeritasLive. We've got incredible subject matter experts on the call today. If you are curious about anything relating to the conversation, please let us know in the comments. We are trying to get to as many of those as possible because cloud is an important topic and I want to make sure that it is relevant to everybody. Of course, when we talk about cloud, it's always the conversation around adoption, but we are so far past adoption. My parents, who have no business in technology whatsoever, have a monthly subscription to iPhone storage so that they can look at pictures of themselves from 2007. In a recent study, Gartner Research posts that 85% of enterprises will adopt a cloud-first mentality. So this isn't something that's just inserted into the lexicon or a niche area of every organization. This is something that is at the forefront of all major technological innovations. Additionally, from the year 2020 to 2022, public cloud services went from 313 billion to 482 billion. So if you're keeping score at a calculator nearby, that is a year-over-year growth of a lot of money. Additionally, Gartner predicts that in the year 2026, 45% of every IT dollar spent will be centered around public cloud, which is why this is such an important topic. And by the way, that's up from 17% in 2021, or less than 17%. So with that, I'd like to introduce our super SMEs, the incredible subject matter experts that are going to help me decipher some of the things that we need to know around cloud. What are those challenges? How do we get here? What did the future bring? So please help me welcome Ray Lucchese. He's the founder, president of Silverton Consulting. He brings decades of experience on cloud and infrastructure. Ray, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Johnny. I really appreciate being on the show today. Hopefully we can add some color to the discussion.
Oh, so much color. We're going to have some fun. And not to be outdone, of course, we have our very own field CTO, cloud architect extraordinaire. He's had dozens, hundreds, thousands of conversations with customers around all things cloud. So his perspective is going to be key here. Tim Pedro, little golf clap for Tim.
Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it and happy to be here.
Hey, shout out to, I'm shucking and jiving here. Shout out to some of those viewers. We got Minnesota, India, somebody from Albania. Oh, I love that. And of course, a fellow Floridian. Solidarity to you, my sir. So if you've watched Veritas Live, you know we always want to start out with a little icebreaker. I was able to email you the question that I wanted to ask, so I hope you guys came prepared. But here's what I'm thinking for my own edification. I want to make this music centric. So my question, if you were to pick a song that encapsulates your view of the cloud, where we are today, I'm curious, what song would you pick? And Ray, I'm going to pass it over to you first.
Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. It's all about, yeah, it's the first thing I thought of when you asked the question. So it was it, man.
And how's that going? Like, can you sing that?
I can't. Don't cry for me, Argentina. Something like that.
I love it. I love it. Clip that. Clip that. Post it on LinkedIn. We're going to use that.
Please don't.
Put that on repeat. I love. And so is Argentina the cloud, or what's the? You know what? We'll talk about it later. We'll get into that next question.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Tim. Same question.
Just the first thing that came to mind, I feel like it has to be Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley.
Oh, no.
Something that embodies the entire time period we are in. And, you know, those clouds love to get your data, but not so much give it up. So
So for all of the viewers out there, you just got rickrolled by the best of them, Tim Pedro. That song is going to be in your heads for the rest of eternity. So when I was thinking about it, I was thinking something maybe Hotel California, the Eagles. You can check in anytime you want, but you can't ever leave.
Mhm.
Thoughts, comments?
Yeah, absolutely. Same idea as mine.
Look,
Yeah.
which brings me into the first question. Let's segue this because I've got a lot of questions. I've gotten a lot of questions from different viewers that are curious around where we're going, where we're heading up, where we're heading, where we're ending up. But I kind of want to start with how we got here. So Ray, when we're talking about cloud adoption, when we're talking about what's happening in the industry today, can you maybe share some of your perspective, your experience on how we got to this point, where we are with the cloud?
I think the industry has always had a sort of push-pull mentality with consolidation versus distribution. And that has played over the course of many, many years. And then the internet kind of came into existence in the early 90s, late 90s. And the cloud kind of started as a storage solution, keeping the data, and it went from there. And to my view, the cloud is sort of finesse this consolidate, don't consolidate, and distribute kind of thing by having this massive amount of infrastructure you can tap anywhere in the world, and it's both distributed and consolidated in my mind, and that's how I think we kind of got where we're at today.
So
Tim,
I'm going to ask you this too, because we're talking about the internet. We're talking about we're not talking about a long span of time here from the beginning of the internet to where we are now. So
yeah.
I'm curious, is where are we on this bell curve? Are we reaching a tipping point? Is there an inflection point with where we are in cloud?
I don't know if it's going to necessarily be a bell curve, more kind of a leveling out, because I don't see people leaving the cloud per se once they've moved up. As we've said, cloud providers don't like that happening. So I think we're probably 3 to 5 years away from hitting that inflection point. There is a significant amount of companies that are still adopting the cloud or still coming up with those strategies as the best way to get there. So I think we're probably 3 to 5 years out from that tipping point, as it were.
I think there is a sort of a migration to and from the cloud that happens as people, organizations really start seeing what the cost of the cloud can be. It can be somewhat surprising to many of them as they see what their Amazon or Google or Azure bills are, and I don't think it's
cheap, right?
Yeah, obviously everybody I talk to wants a cheaper cloud. They're not getting it to some extent. They can negotiate if they're big enough, I suppose. But there's certainly a cost perspective here. I don't think it's never ending. You go in there and you never get out, but it's costly to get out.
It's costly,
I'll agree with that.
But it's a lot of times for a lot of organizations, I have to imagine that the benefits outweigh some of those costs. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. The agility and all that other stuff, and the ability to turn things on, turn things off, and scale from 0 to 10,000 servers in 20 seconds is a significant advantage. Yes, I agree.
That's a big benefit when you're competing with somebody else and you're growing inorganically and you're able to scale that quickly. So we understand some of those benefits that they're inherent, but I'm curious around cost. What are some of those other challenges that cloud provides? I have to imagine that there's some yin and yang to what this provides versus some of the challenges that it creates.
Yeah, I think one of the big things about cloud is that a lot of organizations are transforming from CapEx heavy to OpEx heavy, and cloud really allows for that with their subscription methodology and the monthly consumption of what they are using. It makes things a little less predictable because typically you don't have like long contracts or anything with a set price. But it does allow for the agility that Ray was talking about, where you can grow and shrink, as needed. And a great example of that is stuff like Black Friday in retail, where you have companies that may have smaller web footprints, and then all of a sudden have to spin up this massive infrastructure in order to support all of these sales. Well, you don't want to hold on to that after all of that is done. You want to be able to shrink back down, right? And cloud really helps drive that behavior with organizations.
Well, the ability to take out your credit card and go out and buy, 100 servers
Yep.
for whatever you want is just phenomenal, right? I mean, you do that with a real vendor, it would take weeks at a minimum, if not months, right?
Yeah, you made me harken back to some of those days, those Cyber Monday days where you would just crash a website and that was the norm.
Yeah.
Everyone celebrate the crashing of a website. Now it's a lot harder to do because you can just scale. You can just scale out.
Absolutely.
So, and I guess along those lines, I was looking at a meme a little while ago, and it was a guy at a ball game, and he had a backwards cap, and he had sunglasses on his head, and there was sun beating in his eyes, and he was like shielding his eyes. He's got all of the tools he needed, but he was still just holding his hand out. So what are there some trends, or are there some benefits of cloud that some organizations aren't realizing, or some tools that a lot of people aren't utilizing?
I talked to one guy, and it was like, his major problem, what he wanted, I asked him what he wanted from the cloud. He said, I want it to slow down. It's just advancing so fast. I can't keep up with it. My people can't adopt what we've already gotten, from the cloud. And it is a challenge. And I don't think it's going to change anything, because I think the cloud is sort of on this trajectory that will never go down from that perspective. But they really, it's a challenge to keep up with the technology that are being implemented in the cloud today. I don't know, Tim, what do you think?
I think, you're absolutely right. And I think as a lot of companies start adopting the cloud, like the first step of that process tends to be, let's just take the environment I have and let's just put it in the cloud, right? And I think that's where a lot of the cost concern comes from, because that is not how the cloud is, quote unquote, meant to be used. There are different levels of optimization and stuff like that really have to happen to use everything that the cloud can provide. Things like the platform as a service. So a great example is why build a SQL server if you can just leverage Azure SQL, and functionality like that. All the cloud providers give you options to do that.
It's cost, Tim. It's cost. It's the money that you pay for, Azure SQL versus firing up a couple of servers or a dozen servers in SQL on. It's a different story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also argue that it's an expertise thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are used to doing things the way they've always done it. And it is really a total shift in mindset when you start developing for the cloud. So I think, even as cloud architects, the people dedicated to doing this stuff are now learning, right? Every cloud is different. You can be a cloud architect for Azure, and you may understand GCP, but what they excel at is different, and how to utilize the resources they give you is different. And I think that's something that a lot of organizations stumble as they are trying to get to the cloud and try to use it in the most efficient way, both for cost and for performance and availability.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just curious around all of those native tools versus supplementing those native tools with all sorts of technology that interacts and connects with different aspects of the cloud and the various cloud providers. So there's just a lot out there. It's a lot easier for somebody to say, well, the sun's coming in my eyes. This is just what I do when the sun comes in my eyes.
It's one of those things that, when you're talking about native tools, quite often it's there, I might as well use it. And it's the easiest, fastest thing to do as we are deploying our new infrastructure up into the cloud. I think it's something that honestly, COVID and the pandemic actually accelerated, because so many companies now had to deal with this remote workforce, and the cloud was a fantastic answer for that. But as a consequence of that, a lot of companies who had 3-year plans magically found them to be 3-month plans. They had to be accelerated to the point that, okay, we just have to do this as quickly as possible. And now as we are coming out of that, and companies are able to kind of look back and go, okay, well, we did it as quickly as possible and we were successful. Now what do we do to make it, right?
Or better or something like that. I've talked to a number of companies, they've gone to this remote work and they're not coming back to a large extent. It's not like I suppose some of the big companies want to have office work again, but we're all remote, and the world has come to accommodate that sort of workflow. And I don't know if we'll ever see big offices like we used to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a hybrid approach, but yeah, like you said, without the cloud, without what we're doing, without where technology is, I don't know what would have happened in 2020. I don't know, but it seemed like there wasn't much interruption, to your point.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I've been working remotely for 20 years, so it's not a big deal from my perspective. But yeah, a lot of people, it took a while for them to realize they could do what they needed to get done. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I'm getting a question here. So my biggest concern is cloud storage not liking the duplication and cost of heavy network traffic across different regions, VNets across a country. So of course there are a lot of concerns. What do you think about that, Ray?
Yeah, so deduplication is a way to reduce the size of your data, and the cloud is not into that game to a large extent. And there's computation required to do it well. Mm-hmm. And they get money for traffic, whether it's coming or going. They get money when you want to take your data out of the cloud. I mean, I think there's a big situation here long term that, if you look at where the cloud needs to go, they need to be freer with the data. They need to be freer with networking. Data needs to be free. It's a different story, but yeah, that's a different concept and a different discussion. I'm sure.
Stand on your podium. Data needs to be free. Do you hear that? Do you hear that, big data? Ray says data needs to be free. No, I think that's a good segue to really what I want to get. I want to leverage your experience and leverage what you know about the cloud to kind of make a prediction about where you think this is going. And it sounds like we highlighted a few of this, but I'm not going to hold you to this. I'm not going to do a Back to the Future 2. Let me know in the comments what year they went to. Use the hashtag _TeachAMillennial. What year they went to with flying cars and hoverboards, but we were nowhere near that. So I'm not going to hold you to this, but what does the future, the near future, look like for where we are and what we're going toward?
I think as companies begin to adopt the cloud, quite often it was a single cloud mentality. Okay, we have a contract with Azure, we have a contract with AWS, or GCP. But the truth is, each one of those providers and all the others, they all have kind of a specialty, right? There's something they are particularly good at. Google, for example, they built their business on analytics, and they have taken that expertise and put it in their cloud. So I think as we move forward, we are going to see something much more dynamic, where organizations start leveraging multiple clouds and not just one cloud for whatever is easiest, because you want to go to the cloud that is best for that particular use case, right? For instance, I have a customer that's actually a financial organization, and they need heavy analytics on all of their trading data, and so GCP was the natural option for them, but they also have a heavy development front, right? And maybe GCP isn't the answer for that. So they have now started looking at AWS for more of the development stuff while still leveraging GCP for the analytics. I think you're really going to see that blossom in the industry, and maybe even something along the lines of a virtualization layer between the customer and the cloud that allows for them to be much more dynamic.
Whoa! That would be impressive.
Cloud service providers would want that.
Maybe data. You could move. The idea of being able to move data to where it is best suited. Yeah, the cloud providers may not like that, but it is what is best for business. And I think we're going to get to that point eventually.
Well, Ray freed the data 5 minutes ago, so I think
data free.
Exactly
right. The challenge with where the cloud needs to go long term is they've got to make they have the stranglehold on the data. They really, they won't let it go, or the cost is significant to let it go. Somebody has got to build some structure or infrastructure between my data and the cloud infrastructure, so that I can have my data wherever I need it to be, and use it in whatever cloud or wherever on-prem or whatever other place I want to do it. Data needs to be free, man. It's not free today. The cloud has a stranglehold on data. You heard it here first.
It's true. I mean, come on, get back to the Rick Astley, the Hotel California. Yeah, cloud definitely has a stranglehold on data, but there's tools, there's things that we can do. So what are your thoughts on the machine learning AI aspect of trying to calculate that?
I think the cloud is still somewhat nascent, or they're still trying to figure out how to do ML ops properly. I mean, I'm on this Slack channel with ML ops. It's a great Slack channel. All they ever talk about was SageMaker doesn't do this, Vertex doesn't do that, Azure doesn't do this. We need to have something that's more complete, more significant than what they have today. So I think it's still early times in ML ops, and I think the world is moving more to incorporate artificial intelligence and applications and front end and back end and et cetera, et cetera. And in order to do that effectively, the cloud needs to provide more tools, more tooling, I'd say. Maybe that's the right word. I don't know, Tim.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that goes towards the whole adoption of platform as a service, where companies, why build it if you have to kind of mentality. A lot of companies have this thought of, well, you know what, we can do it better. Well, yeah, you probably can, but that's not always the best option. You can do it better, but now you have to maintain it. Now you have to, patch it and all of that fun stuff. And there's a lot of things out there, in particular around machine learning and AI, that the cloud is starting to provide that is much easier to consume than having to build all of that yourself, at least to use as a baseline or a launching board to start that process and to start building apps around that.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think we are coming to a close. I do want to highlight Bobby Hamilton did answer my question. I don't know if you use the hashtag #TeachAMillennial, but it's October 21st, 2015. That is the year that they traveled to in Back to the Future 2, which way off. I don't know who wrote that, but hey, entertaining to boot. Hey, I want to thank Tim. I want to thank Ray. Ray Lucchese actually really enjoyed the conversation. Please visit his website, his blog. He also has a podcast himself, Graybeards on Storage, which is a phenomenal name. And I'm wondering how much years of experience I need to be an honorary graybeard.
Give it a couple of decades, Johnny.
But I love the format. I love the podcast. It's insightful. It's engaging. So well done. And a little shameless Veritas plug too. Check out the episode Renee Carlisle did on native Kubernetes protection, data protection with Veritas Net Backup. It's a great episode. All the episodes are great. So check those out. Check out his website. Tim Pedro as well. Thank you so much for joining in on the conversation. Really appreciate your perspective and the fact that you rickrolled the entire audience.
My pleasure.
So we had fun, episode 1, season 2, but if you're interested in getting a sneak peek of what's in store for next season, visit Sonia Duffin's blog. We're going to link that, Beyond the Cloud as We Know It Today. Some breadcrumbs for what we're going to do and more questions to be had. Of course, like, follow, share, subscribe on YouTube. Visit YouTube, our channel on YouTube, to watch previous videos, previous Veritas Live episodes, and continue to engage with us using the hashtag Veritas Live for any comments, any questions, any topics that you think are relevant. We always want to make sure that we bring the most upfront, top of mind technological trends to Veritas Live. So we appreciate you joining. We appreciate our guests. Thank you so much. And we will see you again on the next episode.
Thanks, Johnny. Thanks, Veritas.
Thank you.